It was a bitterly cold evening. The streets were alive with rushing footsteps, people eager to get home, but no one noticed the frail old man sitting silently at the bus stop. His coat was torn, his shoes had holes, and his thin hands trembled against the icy air. He sat hunched, hoping for warmth, but instead receiving only the harsh glance of indifference. Some people saw him yet chose to ignore. Others pretended he wasn't there. The old man lowered his gaze, fighting back tears, not just from the cold but from the heavy loneliness of being invisible in a world that never stopped moving. Then, a boy, no older than 16, walked past carrying his school bag. He slowed down, observing the old man. Without hesitation, he took off his own jacket and gently draped it around the stranger's shoulders. The old man looked up in shock. "Son, why would you do this?" he whispered, his voice shaking. The boy smiled softly and said, "Because you need it more than I do." And just like that, he walked away, disappearing into the busy crowd. The old man clutched the jacket tightly. For the first time in years, he felt not only warmth but also love and dignity. His eyes filled with grateful tears, and he whispered prayers under his breath, blessings for the boy who reminded him that kindness still exists. That night, he slept warmer than he had in years, wrapped not only in a jacket, but in hope. Maria stood nervously at the supermarket checkout, her heart pounding as the cashier announced the total. She swiped her card once, twice, 3 times, but each time, the same word appeared: declined. Her little daughter tugged her sleeve, unaware of the storm in her mother's heart. In her cart lay the bare essentials: bread, milk, and a pack of diapers. Maria's cheeks burned with shame as people behind her sighed impatiently. She began to remove items, whispering apologies, when suddenly, a man behind her stepped forward. "Don't worry," he said gently. He swiped his own card, covering the bill. Maria froze, her throat tightening. I can't accept this," she stammered, tears already forming. The man shook his head with a warm smile. "You're not accepting anything, you're receiving kindness. One day, when you're able, you'll pass it on to someone else." Maria's eyes overflowed. In that small, ordinary supermarket, a stranger became an angel. She hugged her daughter tightly, whispering, "See, sweetheart, good people still exist." Later that night, Maria sat by her window, the receipt still in her hand. She realized it wasn't just groceries the man had given her. It was dignity, hope, and the reminder that humanity thrives in unseen corners. She prayed for the stranger who had saved her day and promised silently to one day be that angel for someone else. Ahmed, a hardworking taxi driver, had spent the entire day picking up passengers. Late in the evening, a young nurse entered his cab. She looked exhausted, her eyes swollen from crying. Ahmed, noticing her silence, asked gently, "Are you okay, sister?" At first, she shook her head, but then tears spilled freely. "My father passed away this morning," she whispered. "I don't know how I'll afford the funeral. I've spent everything on his hospital bills." Ahmed's heart tightened. He thought of his own father, long gone, and the pain of loss. When they reached her destination, she reached for her purse, but Ahmed placed his hand firmly on the meter. "Keep your money," he said. The nurse looked confused. "But you drove me all the way here." Ahmed reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope, his savings for the week. He pressed it into her hand. "This isn't much, but please use it for your father's burial. He raised a daughter who saves lives. Let me honor him this way." The nurse's lips trembled as she shook her head. "I can't." Ahmed interrupted softly, "You can. And one day, you'll help someone else." She broke down, hugging the envelope to her chest. In that moment, Ahmed wasn't just a taxi driver. He was a brother, a friend, a beacon of compassion. That night, as Ahmed drove away, he felt lighter. He had given away money, but gained something far greater: the satisfaction of lifting another soul when it mattered most. In a small town school, Daniel was the boy no one noticed. He was quiet, shy, and often sat alone. Every day at lunch, he opened his empty box, pretending to eat, hiding the truth that his family couldn't afford proper meals. His classmates sometimes glanced at him but never asked questions. One afternoon, a group of kids decided to do something different. Without telling him, each child brought an extra item from home: an apple, a sandwich, a cookie, a juice box. When Daniel opened his lunchbox that day, it was overflowing with food, neatly tucked in by his classmates. Daniel stared at the box, his hands trembling. Is this for me?" he asked softly. A girl smiled and said, "Of course. Friends share, right?" For the first time in weeks, Daniel's face lit up with a genuine smile. He bit into the sandwich, his eyes filling with tears, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming kindness he never expected. The teachers watched silently from the corner, their hearts swelling with pride. They realized that children, in their innocence, understood humanity better than most adults. From that day forward, Daniel was never alone at lunch. His classmates not only shared food but also laughter, stories, and friendship. That simple act of kindness transformed his world. Years later, Daniel would look back at that lunchbox and remember it as the moment his life changed. Not because of the food, but because a group of children taught him he belonged. It was midnight on a deserted road when Sarah's car broke down. Panic rose in her chest as she realized her phone battery was dead and no cars were stopping. The shadows around her seemed to grow darker, and fear consumed her. Just as she was about to give up hope, headlights appeared. A man pulled over and stepped out. Sarah's heart raced. Was he safe? The stranger smiled gently. "Need help?" he asked. He changed her flat tire quickly, his hands working in the cold. But instead of leaving, he waited until Sarah was back in the car. "I'll follow behind you until you get home safely," he said firmly. Sarah was stunned. "You don't have to do that," she whispered. He shook his head. "Someday, you'll do the same for someone else. That's how kindness lives on." He drove behind her for 30 long minutes, his headlights a shield of comfort. When she finally reached home, she turned to thank him, but he only waved, smiling, and drove away into the night. Sarah stood in her driveway, tears rolling down her cheeks. She had been terrified, but a stranger turned her fear into faith. She realized that humanity isn't dead, it lives in ordinary people who go out of their way to care, expecting nothing in return. That night, Sarah wrote in her journal, "A stranger stayed until I was safe. I will never forget this. And one day, I will be that stranger for someone else."